Rise for the pledge of allegiance. Back over.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, approval of the minutes from October 4th, 2023.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the minutes from October 4th, 2023.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. That was quick. Okay, new business, Fisher Street Bridge name dedication request.
Yeah, I apologize. I had a misunderstanding of how this process works. I thought this was actually the
You're
request
not alone.
itself.
You're not alone.
Yeah. But I guess Mr. Donovan's here to help explain it, possibly. But it seems like what are we doing?
Please, yes.
Evening, everyone. Dan Donovan, Town Council. Not Town Attorney, by the way. So, as Mike's been part of this for a while now, about a year ago, the Town Council received a request to rename the Fisher Street Bridge. It was decided that we needed a bylaw to come up with a procedure for how to do that. It took us quite a while to hammer it out, but we finally did, and so now the process has started. So the first step of the process was to receive the application from the family, which we did. Then the town council president created an ad hoc advisory committee. It's made up of 3 board chairs: the chair of the Park and Rec Commission, the chair of the Conservation Commission, and Mr. Thompson, chair of Public Works. So the first step that they had to do was convene for a meeting, and they did that last week. And then they refer it to you guys because bridges fall under the Board of Public Works. What you are being asked for tonight is not to vet the application itself. That's what the committee's going to do, depending on what you do tonight. What you're really being asked to do tonight is say that you're okay with naming the bridge, assuming that the advisory committee vets the application and determines that it meets all the criteria. So you're not voting tonight to change the name of the bridge. You're just saying, we're okay with renaming a bridge. Potentially, you might not be. Potentially, you might say, well, we don't want to rename bridges in town. They have their own names. So that's really what tonight is. It was a concern that was raised by another board where they didn't want the advisory committee to force a name change on them if they didn't want it. So this ensured that the relevant boards would have at least one opportunity to stop the process. That's really why we came up with this particular piece of it. Because depending on the property, you may not get the request back. There are 2 types of assets in town. There are what we call major assets, which are large public spaces and properties. So it would be the town hall, the police station, the community field. The final acceptance of a name change for those properties would be the town council. All other properties, all other assets of the town, so pieces of those. So for example, an end zone at Community Field, or the way we're interpreting it, bridges in town, those are not considered major assets. So those would come back to the board that has the responsibility for that particular asset.
Is it regardless of what the name is when it comes to the board? So in the future, you're going to want to name this board. Will we always know the name of the
if it's a bridge, would we always know the name of the applicant?
Yes, that would be part of the application.
So
Yeah,
we would
the-
know that, so it wouldn't come to us until they've actually submitted an application.
Exactly.
And there's a name.
That's what
and
kicks the ball, that's what gets the ball rolling.
That's, I just want to make sure, 'cause you-
And what would happen is basically tonight, so assuming that you guys give this a thumbs up and say, yeah, we're generally okay with this. This will go back to the naming committee. They will look at the bylaw, and there is criteria set out in the bylaw to determine if a person is,
Worthy.
I don't want to say worthy, because that's, that's kind of a loaded, but had a significant contribution to the town. Because let's face it, we only have so many assets in town. You start naming things, pretty soon you're going to run out of assets. So you want to be able to judge and say, yeah, this person was significant, they had a significant impact on the town. When the naming committee does that, they then make their recommendation. Yes, this person meets this criteria, or no, they don't. And then it either comes back to you in this case, or if it were a major asset, it would go to the town council, and they would have the final say. Okay, the person meets the criteria. Now, do we really want to name this property after that person? So that's the final stage of the process.
So we're not at the final stage, we're at have the.
Really kind of the beginning. It's really the second or third step, depending on
We're
how
at
you
the-
count
We have
it.
the name, and we think it's relatively okay, given what you've said. Send
Exactly.
it back to them, let them do the due diligence and.
There you go.
Final determination.
We
Exactly.
don't even know if that name is going to get,
Right.
all we're saying basically is, yeah, we don't have a problem with naming.
With naming.
With naming the assets.
Right.
of the
They've
DPW.
received an application of somebody.
Right,
Are
Exactly.
we okay naming this piece?
right. Assuming that the committee approves it.
Right.
And then it would come back. And even then, you would have the ability to debate it and decide, okay, now that they've said it meets the criteria, do we really want to go through with this? And it gives you at that point that opportunity to finally say, yes, we do, or yes, we don't. The other thing I had mentioned to Mark and to Mike earlier, this is the first time we've done this following this procedure. So there are definitely going to be wrinkles that come up. One of the wrinkles that sort of came up was the discussion about what if you guys felt that a bridge really is a major asset? We don't really have a procedure for that. So I would say if you do, I would have a separate vote on that and include that with your recommendation. So if you say, yeah, we're okay with naming it, because if you say, no, we don't want to name it, that ends the process right here. So then you don't have to worry about it. But if you say, yeah, we're okay with naming it, however, we think it's a major asset, you'd want to include that. Tonight would be your opportunity to include that and let the committee know we should evaluate it, with the understanding that then you won't get it back. It goes to council rather than to here.
So if it's important enough to us, we don't get to vote on it.
That's right. In that 5 years, we won't be around anymore.
Well, the other thing that's different about it, just so you understand, with a major asset, a public hearing has to be held on the naming. So you have to post it for 2 weeks. You have to notify basically the whole town so the people can come in and say whether they think it's a good idea or not. With other assets like the bridge, they'll have a meeting and you'll invite, I would assume, invite the applicant, maybe invite the veterans agent, you guys if you wanted to come, that sort of thing. But it doesn't have to be posted as a public hearing. So the process is a little less complicated for non-major assets. We really need to come up with a better term for that.
So Dan, all the other bridges, I'd say we got other bridges, all gonna be named after veterans?
That would be up to the committee based on who applies for it, Don. Veterans, certainly I would say,
Yeah.
if somebody was a veteran, that's definitely one of the criteria that you would judge. But it wouldn't have to be a veteran.
Could be someone.
Anyone that could be
was
considered
involved in the
significant
community.
enough. Yeah.
Right, one of the things, thinking about this and kind of mirroring off of the fear that I think the Park and Rec had, like, we have a lot of pumping stations in town. One of them, the Grimaldi Pumping Station, is named after somebody, you know. We have our wastewater plant and other things that might not fall into the special criteria of assets, but they still might be important and might be something that the Board of Public Works might deem that, you know, certain assets should possibly be reserved for people who supported, you know, the Department of Public Works. 50 years old this year, by the way. You know, and as part of that, you know, say, well, we don't think this person had anything to do with, you know, building the wastewater treatment plant or something, or some of the things, you know, that Ray Payson or some of the people on the board, you guys will all get your picture on the wall tonight, after tonight, but, you know, just, I just think there's some criteria where the board might legitimately be like, we think that's better reserved for someone who's been part of this organization
Timing.
versus something else.
Well, and that's a great example too, Mark, Grimaldi, because that's something that's already been named after. So now the Fisher Street Bridge isn't currently named after anyone. It's just the street that happens to
We
go over.
secretly
it.
named it after Mark Fisher.
But Grimaldi, if somebody wanted to rename that, now you're actually taking the name away from somebody it was already named after. So you might decide, no, we don't even want to consider that. So tonight would be the night that you would kill that request. Now, that wouldn't stop the person from the family from submitting another request and saying, okay, we can't name Grimaldi, maybe we can name something else after them. But from your perspective, that would be the end of
So
it.
it's on a case-by-case.
It really is on a case-by-case basis, and, you know, the evaluation criteria are pretty standard. We looked at about 20 different towns' bylaws, so just so you know, we didn't just pull this out of our hat. We looked at a whole bunch of different bylaws to see how they did it and came up with a whole bunch of different criteria, and we kind of tried to look at what were the common things that they all looked at. So that's the criteria. But as we go through this process, I'm fully expecting that the committee will come back to us and say, well, you know, this one, we really didn't think this was all that important, but these two things that aren't on the list, we had a lot of discussion about, so we'll have to amend the bylaw. Oh, I like the smile, Don. This is
I'd
going
like
to
to
be
name
good.
the Route 1 sewer line to Alan Riley, because if it wasn't for him, there would be no growth in town, revenue.
You want to name the pumping
So-
station after him, even though it's not ours?
You know, I mean, the poor guy,
Where are you gonna put the plaque?
we'll put on Route 1.
Oh, no, we'll put it on the inside of a sewer manhole cover. When you flip it over, it'll be right there.
Oh, the last thing I should mention, more for the audience at home that is going to see this,
Both of you.
both of them. Well, we'll get the word out slowly but surely. As I mentioned earlier, the reason we picked the 3 board chairs that we picked is because most of the properties that would fall under this bylaw fall under them. The remaining properties would fall under the town manager, who would also be consulted, just like you guys would be, but it would be going to the town manager instead. There are 2 exceptions to that, however, that are carved out by Mass General Law. School property is the sole responsibility of the school committee. So they are totally outside this process. So if somebody wants to rename or name the new high school, if there's ever one, that goes to the school committee. That's totally outside of this process. The other one is Richard's Library. That's under the Library Board of Trustees. So nobody can ever come to this committee with a request to rename Richard's Library. They have to go to the trustees for that.
Named. It's already named.
It's already, but, well, as we've seen, now there's a move in Boston to rename Faneuil Hall. Things happen.
Yeah.
That was part of why we wanted to come up with this in a way, because, God forbid, somebody wants to start renaming things, you know, we need a way to standardize it.
Yeah, you need to check out.
North Attleboro has a history of not naming buildings and that type of thing after people. I think the only thing that I can remember is Joseph Martin for the Martin School, okay?
Yep.
I mean, you gotta be really up there in giving back to the community and, you know, and that type of thing.
Yeah.
We seen streets and ways and things like that, you know, that have been named after, like in front of the community school, Henry McDede Way, you know, Wilson Whitty Way, and that type of thing.
That actually brings up another good point, John.
But those are-
The planning
those are owned by
board,
the- Those are owned by the school department.
Yeah,
the planning board has a policy on naming of streets. It's done by the for new subdivisions, it's done by the builder of the subdivision. They pick veterans, I think,
A lot of
typically.
guys like that.
That process isn't changed. So street names are, we left streets completely out of this bylaw. So you will never see a request to rename a street. That's not part of the bylaw. It's town assets, town-owned properties, buildings, fields, conservation areas, that sort of thing,
That's what we
not
used to do on the
streets.
plan board.
Streets are a whole different animal, because, again, we didn't want to get in the position of
I mean, I got
having
nothing against it.
the three board chairs have to decide, well, what are we going to rename Washington Street to? That's a big, big can of worms that we didn't want to open. So streets are a whole different thing.
Mike T. Way. All right,
All right.
Thank
Thank you, guys.
so with that,
Thank you.
we can go right to that. And the motion,
Not that motion,
the recommendation,
not that recommendation.
huh?
You don't want to read that recommendation. It's incorrect.
Why is it incorrect?
Because the way I wrote it was actually voting to recommend that it be, well, maybe it is correct,
Board
recommendation.
vote to return a
see-
positive recommendation of an application. Yes.
Did you see the recommendation?
I did.
And-
I would say this is the recommendation, sorry.
That's,
Kevin's gonna poke out something there. I would say that's probably the motion you're gonna want if it comes back to you guys.
okay.
Because that motion is specifically saying you're approving the name for this person.
Okay.
Basically, what you want to, I think what you want to say tonight is, you support,
Make a motion to support.
The application.
support the process or something
Yeah.
like that.
Support the process of
Yeah,
renaming
right.
Yeah,
of renaming the bridge.
So
Moving
moved,
forward with the, moving forward with the
Forward,
process.
yes,
with
right.
the process. Yeah, I would think that would work.
so moved.
Have to write it down?
Yes.
Better write it down.
All right, then.
Mike took my pen.
You want your pen back?
No, that's all right.
With the board.
You'll need it more than me.
Return.
Oh, actually.
What was I saying? Positive, what did I say?
That the vote to return a positive,
Recommendation for the naming, for the renaming of,
Yeah,
to move forward in the process. A positive recommendation to move forward.
with naming bridges and assets under the direction of Department of Public Works. That
or is
work?
this specific to Fisher Street?
This, yeah, because then we're gonna have to do this.
Is it specific to Fisher Street? Yeah, because anytime there's one, you would have to vote.
Right,
You're not just issuing a blanket.
Right,
okay with
but
this.
we're not issuing a blanket right now, we're just making a
You're just saying
recommendation.
specifically for this application, we're. in
Move
favor
to
of
move the
this.
application.
Moving it
All right,
forward.
to move the application forward for review by the ad hoc,
Committee.
ad hoc town council committee.
Yeah, that's it, Tony.
Okay, we can work with that.
Review by the, all right, hold on, let me just, ad hoc, naming committee, is it ad hoc naming committee?
Ad hoc naming.
There we go, all right,
So that's coming back to my committee,
yeah, okay, so, oh, there it is right there, ad hoc naming.
even though we already voted on it.
For
You voted to send it.
application to name Fisher.
Right.
Now you're voting to send it back to yourself, so you can vote to send it back to yourself
Yeah.
again.
All right, I think I got it.
You got a lot of power, Michael.
All right,
Yet it goes nowhere.
I make a motion that the board vote to return a recommendation to move the application forward of the naming of Fisher Street Bridge to the ad hoc naming committee.
Second.
Got it.
Everybody understand the motion?
Yep.
All right, Any further discussion on it?
Nope.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Unanimous. You're killing me, you know that, right?
Just so everyone knows, Fisher Street Bridge is a bridge from the 1850s. It's got about 14, 15-foot span. It used to house next door to it the actual fire station back in the day before it moved to its new digs in 1899 schoolhouse, where it now sits. And the bridge was reconstructed completely in 2009 by the Department of Public Works.
You could actually put a couple of names on that thing.
All four sides,
Yeah.
respect to an advertising.
Could.
that money Mike needs for the new, building.
Hey. Well, that's good, so now you guys will review it, you'll review the application for, well, you guys will review the application.
We did already.
I'm only here to revise.
There you go, okay.
Okay. Now, discussion on subdivision roads.
Yeah, I didn't actually have anything on this. I just kind of wanted to continue some of the discussions we had. And basically to try to get to an overall goal of how we want to move forward. And these are the issues that we have with subdivisions now. One, as we've discussed a little bit in the past, that the way subdivisions are allowed to be constructed under the planning board is somewhat, I'm not gonna call it nebulous, but it's subject to their approval. Even when DPW makes recommendation, they go against it. There are portions of their regulations that they have to follow, but there's others that they have discretion over, and they choose not to have it when DPW wants it, even though they're giving waivers to the people, which, you know, again, is their purview. I don't wanna get into anyone's weeds about purview, but you guys approved a few weeks ago, our standard construction methods, which would have vertical granite curb, larger sidewalk. Actually, in discussion about the sidewalk project that we're doing now on North Washington Street, we found out through reviewing ADA, that was pointed out to us, there was a section where we had 4-foot sidewalk. ADA actually requires 5-foot sidewalk, not including curbing, so you're supposed to have a 5.5-foot wide sidewalk, which doesn't
Or
quite
6
meet.
feet.
Right, or it should be 6 feet with curbing. So technically, the sidewalks we're creating in the subdivision don't necessarily meet ADA at all. And they're also not in, I believe, the town's best interest. We use slope granite curb up against the sidewalk, and it breaks away over a relatively short period of time. The other issue we have is, you know, even when the subdivisions are being built and inspected by outside inspectors, and that process is okay. The problem we run into is specifically, and again, some of this is stuff that is 100% planning board's purview and some should come under us, that subdivisions run on for a long time. Westwood Estates is on its 22nd year, 21st year anyway.
Wow.
There are sections of that subdivision that are still not accepted by the town. Many sections of that are not accepted by the town. Parts of the road that are now 15 years old, that have been constructed and had houses on it since I've been here. Hickory Woods is another one. That project was mostly completed when I got here, still not accepted by the town. No money left for it,
Cushman.
still not approved, still not accepted by the town, so we don't get state money for it. We're plowing it, we're maintaining it, but we really don't have any control over it. So there's some issues with the way planning board process works for us to get a road accepted and get it under our purview, even when the road's fine. If the road's perfectly fine, there's no necessary process for the developer to put the road up. And then we get stuck maintaining it, even though it's not ours, we don't get any money for it, blah, blah, blah. So there's several things I would like to do. One, to engage with the planning board, which I'm sure they would be, you know, amenable to. We just haven't had the opportunity yet. But now that we have our standards, our ducks in a row, I think now is the time to sit down with them and come up with a longer-term strategy for, one, how to hold on to money within the subdivision so that we can recoup our money. Christina Estates is one of them. I think there is $12,000 left in Christina Estates. It's only in binder. There's a ton of work that needs to be done out there just to get phase one into permanent paving, and $12,000 would never cover it. I don't know why it's in that situation. And if they don't pave it in the next couple of years, they're gonna have to redo the binder. And this has happened on a couple of projects over the last several years. Again, they've had some turnover with the town planner, so I think just some stuff's getting missed. But beyond that, I think there needs to be a bigger discussion about how to hold the contractor responsible. The other thing is we start plowing it as soon as they put binder course down, if it's acceptable. And that gives the contractor forever to do it, to not do it. Many towns, including the one I live in, they do not plow, they do not touch a subdivision road until the day it's accepted by the town. And they hold money on the developer until the day it's accepted by the town, to make sure they plow it, and if they don't plow it, they take it out of their bond and go after them for it. Many towns hold the last lot on there until everything else is done, and then release the last lot. So, the solution for the planning board and some of the issues that DPW has had over the past several years, the subdivision off Mount Hope Street being one, Jackson Farms off of Kelly Boulevard being another one, is that either they don't acquiesce to our requests, even though, they seem to be reasonable requests and the developer is asking for more stuff, or they just say it's gonna be private. One of them, that's their purview, I can live with. The other one, I don't think that's acceptable for the town of North Attleboro. I think it's acceptable for one round of people who are living in that house, and then the people after that are all like the 30 or so residents in here from Oak Ridge Avenue, who all come in and say the same thing. Why did you let them do this? So I think we, as a town, need to come up with, we're one town. We're not DPW and planning board, and, we're all on the same boat working for the same residents. And I think we need to come up with some methodology to approach planning board so we can all get on the same page and work for the residents of the town of North Attleboro, not the developers. Sometimes they are very hard on the developers, but there are certain aspects of it where the developer just walks away, and there is no incentive for them to come back. Sometimes they fail to pay their bond and we pull the bond on them, that's a different story. But up till then, you should have enough bond to cover everything that needs to be done on a project.
So why don't we put together a bylaw that forces that and ask the planning board to join us with it? I don't know why they would say no. But eliminate the fact that any infrastructure that's being built in the town of North Attleboro, regardless of whether you're gonna have it private or not, are gonna meet the standards of the Department of Public Works, period. The roads are gonna meet the standards, the curbing's gonna meet the standards, the sidewalks are everything's gonna meet our standards, so it's not drainage, everything. So that we don't, so we end this thing once and for all. And then at the end of this thing, if everything is where it's supposed to be, then we can accept the streets and everything. The houses are still gonna be private, people still own their own houses, but the road's not gonna be private. If they think, people think that just because the road's private, nobody's gonna come down the road.
Right.
They are. Because, a lot of people don't know it's private.
Is this a zoning
I know
bylaw?
we did.
Is this a zoning bylaw, Mark? Or is this a mass general law?
I think a
That's
lot
Mass
of this.
General on the planning board.
Right, I think this falls under the subdivision regulations that we have.
Yeah. the
In town. And
control
Don,
on the-
Don would know a lot more. He was on the
Yeah.
planning board for a very long time.
We never used to have a problem in the past. DPW will make a recommendation how much to release the bond. They would was doing the inspections, they would say, okay, this is what's left, this is how much you gotta left. The planning board at the time when I was on could not release any money till we have a letter from the Director of Public Works to tell us what had to be done, how much to release. And we used to have some fights with the developers, because they say, oh, we're done, go talk to the Director of Public Works.
Yeah.
They're the ones who made the recommendation.
We haven't,
I don't know where the balls dropped. It worked fine for years. We had a sheet, curbing done, 80%. This is done, 50%. The bond is this. That's all you're gonna get.
yeah.
And
It's-
the board will set the bond for the planning board. It was to make a recommendation to tell us, the Director of Public Works, the Assistant Director, will send a letter saying, you should be carrying this much on the project.
Because
We've
when,
gone way out of whack, we've gone so expensive, and it's getting worse and worse.
it is, we got 5 miles of private road in the town. The other thing is that when's the last time a road's been accepted? Veterans Way, is that
Veterans
the
Way
last
is the
one?
last.
And then after that, you
Hirsch
have to go
Road
back
is-
to when town meeting was still around.
Right, Hirsch Road, which is off of Depot Street, that's going through the process. Sean Jordy did that small subdivision. He's going through the process now of getting that accepted. And that's great, that's what we want. But if Sean didn't want to do that, Sean
Yeah.
is no longer making money off that job. There is no incentive for him to pay the $200, go through, so he had to send it over to us, and we were like, hey, we need this gate valve brought to grade, we need this graded out a little bit over here, the detention basin over there, we need to make sure that there's a deed over it so we can access it. Small ask for us, but that was actually work for the developer to do. Developer's done making money on that, so now it's costing him money. It would have been easier for him just to say, don't get it accepted. We're plowing it.
That's right.
And eventually it's gonna start cracking up, or something's gonna happen, or we're gonna blow the curb out of there, which, by the way, we're not responsible if we break the curb while we're plowing, because we make the developer sign a letter every year. But we've had people signing letters every year for Christina Estates, for Hickory Woods. We have a number of them in town that just get abandoned. So I think one of the things we need to emphasize under the subdivision is that there has to be a process for that road to be accepted, or there's something held on the developer until it is. And the only thing I can think of is, we stop plowing roads that aren't accepted until they're accepted. Until they're accepted. And then, I had some friends who lived on a road in Rentham, it was 6 years that they were on that road, and no one would plow. The developer didn't care, he actually lived on the road, didn't care, just would drive over it and wouldn't plow it unless it was really high in snow and he couldn't get through it. And the town of Rentham was like, sorry. But the problem with that is, and I disagree with that too,
Yeah.
that there has to be a methodology to push them to the finish line.
Yeah.
Or to say, we're gonna hire someone to plow it. And I'm gonna hire electricians from Wellesley to come in and plow it at $135 an hour.
What about emergency vehicles, doesn't that?
Yeah, really.
That's where we run into the problem, is that we don't do it, but we have had, a lot of them, if their castings are raised, we'd never plow it. And then they're supposed to, but a lot of these developers also are very callous human beings and don't give a crap if an emergency vehicle can't get in there. They really don't. So they don't plow. And then everyone's calling us saying, you have to do it, you have to do it. And now I have to go in there with my plow, and I usually go in by myself, because it really sucks when you hit a casting.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when it's at 4 inches.
Wakes you up.
Yes.
We are gonna approach the planning board, but should we also get the town manager involved in something like this?
Yes, because it's between two departments, two boards, one of which he appoints. I think it is important to.
Yeah.
And
He's the
again,
one who's got
I don't think this needs to be adversarial. I just think over time, things have slipped through the cracks, and we haven't developed a methodology to get out of it. Because when the project is done, the planning board really isn't involved anymore. I can't imagine anybody at the planning board even recognizing that Hickory Woods isn't accepted, and that ringing an alarm bell for me, for them. If I had a water main done, and I had the water main down on the road, and it was just sitting there for 6 years, I'd probably be concerned that we haven't finished that little project. But that's part of that. Their responsibility is to close that out and get that road accepted. And there's, we did have some roads, and as you guys were on town meeting, remember, a couple years after I got here, we had a lot of roads from the 80s and early 90s, Deer Hollow, whatnot, that were just never accepted because they just weren't accepted. They fell through a crack. And we were maintaining, we were plowing them, the drainage worked, everything seemed fine. So we went and accepted a whole ton of roads right after I first got here, just by fiat. We're just doing it.
So the process is broken.
Yes. Again, I think there's other things. I don't think a road should be built to be private unless it's really intended to be built to be private. And then, I drove by the private development on Mount Hope Street, the family-friendly 40-acre, 40B, whatever it's called, off of there, and it's got a big sign, public services not provided, or whatever it says on there, in big red letters. That's great, as long as everyone in there knows, but I'm
Until
telling
the
you.
second owner comes along and.
Right.
and-
Right, you are, I think there's 5 houses in there, you are 6 owners away from people coming before you and asking you to plow it, and pick up the trash, and do the other things that are in there.
But if we don't allow it to begin with.
Right,
if it's
well, we
just
do
a-
we currently have zoning bylaws that do allow it. We have our cluster development, which you can have a cluster development and still have a public roadway,
Yeah.
if you wanted to.
And that's my
You could
point.
amend that and make it a public,
That's my point. Amend it to make, like I said, amend it so that the infrastructure, meets all the standards
Right.
of the Board of Public, the Department of Public Works. And I don't care what you build in there.
The problem with the family-friendly 40B, and again, it's just one of the consequences of it, it's not a public way, it's a private piece of property, it's all
Driveway.
one
It's a
lot.
driveway.
Right, it's a glorified
It's
driveway.
Right.
And again, that's fine until, I remember, I think it was 2015, we had snow after snow after snow after snow.
I remember that, yeah.
And we got to the point, I don't know if everybody knows, but off of Bungay Road, right before you go up the hill, there's a little driveway.
Yeah.
It is a driveway. It goes over a federal dam.
Yeah.
Yep.
And feeds about 5 houses back there or so. And they got so much snow, they couldn't get a piece of equipment down there. So I got a call from one of the Board of Selectmen members at the time that said, you need to go down there. I said, great. And when my guy accidentally slams into that federal dam and causes $400,000 worth of damage on private property, who's responsible? Who's responsible on that private property? If my guy in the loader, not knowing where he's going, because we've never gone up that road, crashes into a portion of that dam, that's kind of important. And floods out houses. When people build something private, it needs to be extremely obvious that it's private, and they need to understand the consequence of it. We're not those people, we don't go on private property.
No.
I mean, if the fire department had a fire out there, I do whatever they need. We've told them, just let us know. But it can't be like right now we do gravel roads and things for public safety. That's why that's the state law that gives us permission to do those things just for public safety. But, I think for these subdivisions, we need to reconsider, allowing them to be private. I already we don't allow, as a board, water and sewer to be private infrastructure anymore. But drainage still is. So that subdivision that went off between Arnold and High, all that drainage is private, and all those people are gonna be responsible for it. I can't imagine the Harris Ave people out there, how many times they've gone and maintained their detention basins or cleaned their catch basins or done any of that. Right, that'll never happen, because they don't think that they're responsible for that. And there's a reason for that. People don't think they're responsible for, the street that they live on.
Well, they don't read the deed.
No.
They don't read when they bought the
They
house.
don't, and a lot of the deeds, to be fair, and I've read a lot of them, a lot of the deeds to say, and any or easements or exclusions per some other document that you have to go in, and I'm good at that stuff, but most people aren't, to go in and find another document that says, hey, by the way, you own this 1.25 acre parcel that this whole neighborhood drains into,
You gotta keep it clean.
and you have to keep it clean. And when it starts sloughing off the side and your fence is falling into it, that's your fault too. So,
It's
I don't know how we want to approach it, but I definitely want to approach it. I think moving forward, we're at a good point where, we got the full board together. It's probably a good time to, it's probably a good time anyway to sit down with the planning board and start
I
discussing.
think you should have a workshop with them.
Right, and we also have other things like Peck Road. I don't know if anyone knows Peck Road. It's not the Peck you're thinking of. Up at the top of High Street and Ellis Avenue, there's a little cart path that goes up. There's a couple of houses up there that have been there forever, and then it goes into Plainville. It literally, if I park my truck at a certain point in that roadway, nobody could get past. You'd actually have to climb up the walls and get around it. But there's 3 lots up there, and people are trying to sell those lots, and those people are saying, I just want to build a house here. I just want to build a house here. And I've been pushing with the planning board for a long time there's a section of their regulations that say if the planning board determines it's not, significant enough of a street for you to access, that it's not a road. We don't care if they called it a road or someone did it, it's not big enough, and you have to at least bring it to some standard. And then there's a discussion about what that standard is.
Yeah. It's like, this is like a snowball rolling down the hill. The longer we wait, it's just gonna get worse and worse. We gotta nip this in the bud.
I agree, and I know a lot of the residents in these neighborhoods. I've talked to many of them, Villa Way, Harris Farms, Laurelwood, Christina Estates. Some of them were built by design. Villa Way, Harris Farms, Laurelwood were 100%, the town said, you go build that, we never touch it again, it's all yours, which is great. But now those are, or 2 of them anyway, are well over 25 years old, and now they're starting to get in need of infrastructure.
Right.
Things start to deteriorate over time, And that is really expensive.
And now you got second and third owners on
Right.
those streets, okay?
And none of them know it.
None of them know it, that's right.
Well, a lot of them do now, because I've sent letters out to the housing, whatever it is, what's that called? The agency that runs it, the boards that they have there, and said, hey, by the way, all of this is private, it's all under your purview. DPW does not address any of this. And then they give it out to all the residents, and all the residents call me mad.
Yeah, calling you mad, saying, well, I didn't know that. Well, you know.
Title search should have picked that up when you
Smack
did a
your
title
lawyer,
search.
you know. your
Right,
title guy
and that's
would
always
smack
my
your lawyer
argument is,
upside
oh,
the head.
your title
Your
attorney should
lawyer
have got
did your
it. Oh, I didn't get a
search,
title
should have
attorney.
explained that to you.
Yeah,
That's not the town's fault.
no,
Right. Well, now we require them to put the sign at each entrance of the way to say town service is not provided. So at least you've got some warning on it. But I do know some of the people, you know, people say it's a private way, you know, people can't drive up here, they can't do anything. You think that's great until your water main breaks or your
Yeah.
drainage line collapses and you have $150,000 in damages that 17 people have to foot the bill for.
right.
And I promise you, when that happens on Laurelwood, and it will happen on Laurelwood someday, and it will happen in Villa Way someday, I don't know when, but it'll happen, that you will have a bunch of people in here saying, I pay taxes, why do I do this? You know, I'll just hit replay on Oak Ridge Avenue, and you'll hear the same thing over again from them. Because that's the expectation
Those are
people have.
HOAs, right, Laurelwood and all that?
Yeah, that's right. Homeowners Association, that's what it is. I'm trying to think of that. Again, I think the residents of the town of North Attleboro deserve a better approach from all of us on that. Planning board's doing their part, they get to a certain point, and then they throw the bottle in the water and hope that we catch it. And, you know, you're just getting a lot of stuff left in between where it's not, you know, finding a home that can be
Well,
maintained.
let's see if we can get a work group together with the planning board, sit down and talk about this stuff and see where do you want to go with this? Because right now, it's killing both of us.
Well, and again, I don't think that they would be against it. I just think,
So either.
I think people have different acceptances of, well, we'll just make it a private way. You know, I don't find that acceptable, except under very extreme circumstances, and then everybody should be well aware it's a private way.
But even if it is a private way, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, but some of those roads are not built to town standards.
I mean, I'm
But
just saying,
that's why it's a
They did
private
it.
way.
That's
right.
right.
So
So
we're
you can't change that,
why can't you change it?
because they're not built to town standards.
No, I know those current roads, but anything else that's being built now.
Oh, yeah, you can
Even
say-
if it's a private.
Right, and again,
Oh, yeah,
has to be
new,
built.
new
You know,
developments.
one of the arguments we had, or DPW didn't want something built over off of Mount Hope Street because it was low-impact development, which means no sidewalks, no drainage, no curbing. So right there, you're saving the developer a couple $100,000. No sidewalks, no drainage. Of course you're gonna be, I want super low-impact development. But the problem is, that's not going to work. We live in New England. It might snow again. It might not. But if it snows again, that entire subdivision doesn't work because it's relying on country drainage for everything to go out, and it happens to be on a hill that's gonna come down into the roadway where there's not adequate drainage to collect all of that. So we said, no, we don't like
Water
it.
down at the end of the driveway.
And they said, well, we'll just make it private. And I'm like, well, that doesn't solve the problem. But now you have what would have been a perfectly fine little cul-de-sac, which we could have worked out the reasons to make it low-impact development and, meet our standards, because you can do both. Now, the developer's getting away with an extra $200,000. Those people are gonna own it, and any problems that they have are gonna be the problem of the residents who live there and the residents who live at the bottom of
In the town.
Mount Hope Street, sorry.
Yeah.
What about with some of the old private roads that are out there,
Yep.
that we offer some type of betterment if they want to not meet the standards? And that
Some
they
of
would
them-
pay a betterment?
Some of them will be easier than others. I mean, if you look at a Hickory Woods is closer to being built to standards. They had some problems out on that job, but it was generally overseen by the planning board at the time. So Hickory Woods would be one. It just never made it to the finish line because the developer finished developing and went away. There's one little part of the development that the developer actually went out of business. We took the bond, we finished it over there. But the rest of it is just sitting in limbo. That could be taken. Some of them, like Laurelwood and Villa Way, really weren't built to standards on purpose. They have
you
little
can't take
dinky
those.
lights, little dinky sidewalks, no curbing, insufficient pavement. You know, that's something that, if you wanted to take it, it would be a reconstruction project.
Right.
That was
Which
under
would-
the cluster development.
Right, that and Villa Way were both cluster developments.
Yeah, that's a different bylaw.
And I don't know Harris Ave, I wasn't around, that was right before I got here, so Harris Ave, I don't know how that was constructed. I know we oversaw the water main construction.
What's that, Harris Farm?
Yeah, Harris Farms.
That was a cluster too.
Right, but I don't know, I know, and again, these, Laurelwood and Villa Way have private water and sewer. Their water and sewer are private. When you get to Harris Avenue, I know we inspected Harris Avenue because we had inspection reports on it. So we ended up bringing that before the board and accepting the water and sewer. Same thing with the one across the street on High Street and Arnold Road. We inspected the water and sewer, and then we accepted that. So it's just, they're all in different degrees of, and Oak Ridge Avenue and those roads like that are just another animal.
Well, that goes
altogether.
back to the 20s, if we're gonna.
Right, and that,
Back before that.
those are sort of different. The roads that were, camp lots back in the day,
Yeah.
a lot of them around the ponds and things like
Cottages
that.
and, you know.
And that happened all over Massachusetts, where you had these little camp lots, they built them out, built the road out over a number of years, probably sitting on clay or macadam, to be honest, and just built it out and developed full-time houses around there instead of summer camps. So those are a little bit different. Those were all generally before subdivision laws went in. And that's something that, I mean, we do maintain them, to some degree, but it's just Oak Ridge Avenue is an odd animal because it's a mile long and $160,000 worth of effort to
Yeah,
to
there's
fix
some
it.
mansions on that street too.
Yes, those are usually the ones beeping at us yelling.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just wanted to get kind of a direction on where we want to go and then talk to Gil about setting something up as a workshop, not to make any hardcore decisions, but just kind of lay it out
Discuss
there
it.
and see what we could do better for them.
Yeah.
And I do know, we do try to help out quite a bit with inspections, but they're not on us. So technically, they're not on us. But if Gil asks, we will go out and look at anything. We will go out. We went out when they were doing Mount Hope Farms. We went out and inspected all the sidewalk for them because they redid the sidewalk out there and looked at the berm. Was it perfect? Nope. But we only had $112,000 on them, and they need to do $200,000.
Well, I think when they get into these subdivisions, I think they need, just even if they fire a letter off, so what do you think we need to hold for a bond on this? And give us an opportunity to say, well, you need a $500,000 bond on it.
It's usually not the front end of the bond that's the problem.
the
Usually
end.
the front of the bond, it's when they come in and say, all right, I did the binder, that's $300,000. And then 3 years later, they come in and say, I did the curbing. You're like, well, wait a minute, your binder's now no good because you let it sit for 3 years and it's beyond.
Right.
So that should come off the top and go back on and say, before you get another house lot on there, before you get a building permit, we're putting that bond back on there. And I've always said, and again, I don't know enough about subdivision control, so they put a bond up and then you let lots, something like that.
Release them.
They release lots to you.
Yeah.
I would hold one lot on the subdivision until way near the end, maybe not the very end, but way near the end, be like, if everything's not done up to here, like 90%, we're not giving you that last lot, because that's actually worth something. The bond, they've already paid their percentage of the bond, and it'll just hurt them on the next job. That's all that'll do. So, if it's bad enough, they'll probably release it, which is why I'm surprised Mount Hope Farms got down to the level it did. Not perfect again, but it was acceptable enough that, yeah, if he puts that in for acceptance, I'll accept that road.
Should we make a motion as a board? No?
No, we don't need to make a motion.
Yeah, I'll just,
Just have Mark talk, Mark talk to
Set
them
up a
on it and say,
time.
see if we can get a meeting together and
Yeah.
start talking about it and
Okay.
see,
Okay.
see what we
Work out
can.
some of this.
Yeah, and see what we can get together and
I'm
work
sure
on.
it can be worked out to some degree.
I don't see why we can't, come to agreement with, because we're all on the same pages. It's all, this is all our town. And I don't want to bring new people in here and, let them believe that everything's fine and then they find out it's not. I just think that's not right.
Okay. We
Okay.
updated the contract, we got a little bit more paperwork in from our guys, they had a due date to get that in for us. So attached, on the last page of what you guys got is our licensed drain layer, wrong thing, snow plowing contracts, for this year. we're actually in pretty good shape. I just have one person, Bruce, you know who you are, who hasn't gotten his paperwork in yet. He committed, but just hasn't gotten his paperwork in. Hopefully he'll be in by tomorrow. We're having our snow meeting tomorrow here, so we invite the contractors in, we have our guys in, we go over the plow list. I have a very boring 42-point PowerPoint presentation that I give to them.
How much?
42 pages. I go very quick.
Mark, were you happy with the explanation at the town council meeting about how the process is gonna go if we need to move cars off the roads?
No.
Why would they come and talk to us?
Well, there was a question that was posed by one of the councilors at the last town council meeting about how the process was going to be.
The process to notify them, I don't have an issue with.
Okay,
The issue I have is with what happens when they don't move. And here's the problem, and let me explain to the people at home and everybody, what happens when you don't move your car. If you don't move your car and you live on one of the side streets, Eddie or one of those, and I got a 4-inch snowstorm, it's probably not gonna be that big of a deal. It's just that we're gonna go around you, you're gonna go out, brush off your car when you go to work, and there's gonna be big mounds down the street where those cars are. We're not coming back for it. We are not coming back for it. If I'm done plowing, I moved on with my day, and my guys are going home, I'm gonna tell them, do not come back in, because there's a big snow mound on the road where someone left their car. We'll get that Monday, everyone can drive around it for the week. We've already committed to that as a town.
okay.
The problem's gonna be when 35 cars park overnight on North Washington Street where all the businesses are, and I got a 4-inch snowstorm. Now, I've pushed 4 inches of snow up against all those cars. Now those cars are all gonna wipe themselves off. They're probably gonna push it on the other side because it's easier, so they don't wanna put more snow on the side that they're getting in on the car. So now you're gonna have 2 big snow mounds on the side of the road, for all the cars to, for, say it's on a Saturday night that I go do that. Sunday morning, those guys are all gonna leave, and you're gonna have a windrow all the way down North
And if
Washington.
it freezes,
And whether or not it freezes, it's still gonna be 2 things that the people are gonna have to drive and walk over to get to the edge of the road.
so what do you want?
I wanted a $100 fine for all cars that are going, or tow cars. That's what I want. That's what I want. I want a $100 fine. You park your car outside overnight after I do my stupid little signs and I call you and whatever else I was gonna do, $100 fine. And we will have, so we're getting new message boards, December 6th, they're being shipped to us. Smaller message boards. During snow events, a week before, if they're coming, we'll have them down near CVS and up here at North Washington Street. And we will put up there, snow emergency, whatever the date range is.
Parking.
No parking, no overnight parking on there.
Because they're not gonna pay attention, and what concerns me is the roads around downtown, like East
Eddie.
Street and Bank Street
Yep.
and Warren Street and
High
that type
Street.
of thing.
Yeah, High Street's a big one that people park on. And again, the thing is, I've been doing this for a while now, and I've always plowed. We'd have like 6 cars, 7 cars on the road overnight
Right.
during a snowstorm, They were sporadic enough that they weren't a problem. I mean, if you have 14 people parking on High Street overnight, that is gonna look like crap the next day.
Well, I just remember growing up in the city of Boston, it was always like an adventure. Because a lot of the houses in the city of Boston, they didn't have driveways, so they used to do odd even, like one year it would be odd number where you would park on the odd side, and then the next year would be on the even side. So at least with the one-way streets, it wasn't a
Why was
a
the
problem.
change, Mark?
But,
like it.
is it something that needs to be brought to the attention of the town council?
Why was it changed to begin with?
Yeah.
People didn't like it.
Who didn't like it?
I don't know, people. I got a complaint, probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. It was the first complaint I ever got. And the guy said, I got a ticket on my window for parking overnight. And I'm like, oh, how much was it for? He said, oh, it's just a warning. I'm like, all right, well, don't park on the street overnight. He's like, well, I didn't know. I'm like, well, now you know. That's why they gave you a warning. But the police never towed anyway. Just so you know, we had a 20-inch storm. They're not towing on a 20-inch storm either. That's their prerogative. It's the police's purview to tow. So they choose not to. They do ticket people, but right now our ticket's $10. You gonna charge me $10 to park on the street every time it snows? Go ahead. I lived in the city of Boston too. It was much more. If they didn't just tow you outright.
A lot more.
Normally they just ticket you.
So if you figure $10, you get 4 or 5 stores for $50 there, I'll get the parking.
Right,
space.
so that's.
Cheap money.
That was my recommendation, that, we either tow, or if you leave your car on overnight, when we do that, you you get ticketed. And when they get ticketed, don't let it go. Don't abate it, don't do anything to it, make them pay that, and then go, next time, watch for the storm. Yeah, everyone knows when it's very rare that we're gonna get a 4-inch snowstorm and nobody knows it's coming. You know,
It seems like when Attleboro did it, I think Attleboro did the same thing, right? Recently?
Yeah, but the problem is, I would have liked to seen us wait a year to see how Attleboro handled it and how it worked in Attleboro
Yeah.
before we did it.
again, you know, a lot of people know the rhythm of it. I'm hoping a lot of people just didn't read about it, so they don't know. Because a lot of people, cars are parked overnight all the time when we're doing work in town, and literally, first week of December, they're all gone. And they stay gone, and in April, they all come back, like a little wave. So people know. People have known, get
Well,
their
they're
cars off the road.
conditioned. They're conditioned.
They are, and I'm expecting a lot of people won't know, and they'll just keep doing it. But for the ones that do, you know, we do have to come up with a.
Well, there's gotta be a game plan, okay?
Right. But as far as notification, it's easy enough. I can do a reverse 911 to the whole town in 5 minutes. You know, we'll put something together that we broadcast and notify. I've got the two things. We've got the sign board downtown. You know, we'll put it on social media. That part we're actually pretty good at, and I don't have any issue with that. It's really the consequence that I'm concerned about.
Okay,
I specifically asked if I could be the one to hand out the tickets.
there you go.
I don't have to plow
you
route
can-
this year.
You can tell, you can, put the council out there, let them shovel the walks.
I need some shovel.
You put us in you put us in this problem, fix it.
You got extra shovels, right?
A couple, they're hidden. We keep them in that closet actually right there.
That's just,
Steal them.
it's worked for years and years and years, and we've never really had a big
Right, I
issue.
mean,
And
there are-
now all of a sudden,
there were-
it doesn't
so
work
we had
anymore.
We had a TSAG meeting about it, and Captain Roy and I, had said, we don't really see the issue with it.
They wanted to-
We don't really see the need for it. And they said, well, a lot of people have complained about it.
That's the
There was
old
one
saying,
lady
if it's
at the
not
TSAG
broken,
meeting
don't
who
fix
actually
it.
said, I think it's stupid. I live out in the Mendon Road area. My son's got to park on the lawn every night for the one day it snowed this year. I get it. That's actually not a bad argument for them to have. But it's the day your son parks on the road and it snows and we get 4 inches and he has a $100 ticket. Now is it worth it to you? And that's what it has to be. It has to. I don't know if $100 is a number, but it's got to be something better than 10. And then you actually have to execute it. I don't want to tow people just because that's a pain, but
I don't want to tow people, and I don't want to fine them either. I just, I just want to get the roads clear.
Well,
Right.
if,
So you can go
if
back
we
and
do
park
the
on the road.
CTY, I think, just like the process that everyone knows now, if we have a process in place and it's painful enough and
That's
iterative
right, the
enough,
repercussions.
that they will start to learn. But you have to make it count, because if it only snowed, we only had one plowable storm last year. We had, I think, 6 the year before, 2 the year before that. And then, before that, sometimes we have 10, 11, 12, but we have around 10 plowable storms a year on average over the last 10 years. So for those 10 tickets, those $10 tickets, people are just gonna park and deal with it. And if it's enough people, it's gonna be problematic. So go up to 50, ticket everybody. So that's the part we gotta work on. So we're having a tabletop exercise week after next, with everybody. So that's gonna be one of my write-ins, is we have 20 inches of snow, everybody parked on the street. Nobody can
can't
get down High Street.
You'd send a truck down the middle of the street, that's it. You got nothing else, and they've got 40 inches of snow.
Well, the
packed
other
on
problem
car.
you get after storms like that, and this actually happened to me when I was in the town of Needham, that the guy did not plow, he didn't know where the edge was, and he kept plowing out in the middle, and we literally had like 18 inches of snow. All the people had shoveled their driveway out, and I had to push back 4 feet. So now, we have all that snow on the ground, it's all out there, and I had to come down with a 950 loader and bury these people, and they were mad.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, so anyway, that's that. Did you guys vote for this yet?
No, I'll make a motion. The board vote to recommend approval of contracts with the following companies for the 2023-24 snow and ice season as recommended by the Highway Division. Gravity Construction, Inc., H&M Excavating, Joshua Cretion, Oro Sand and Stone Corp., and Stephen Canado.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so moved.
And I do have one last item, kind of last minute. Walsh Contracting, they did, you guys approved a sewer extension on Forest last year.
Yeah.
They did most of it. They didn't do the last section of it. There was one more manhole reach that they had to do. So, but their license expired with us, and they wanted to try and get that thing done before winter. There's a house at the end that's selling, so they're finally extending it out to that last one. So it still falls under the extension that you guys approved.
Okay.
It's the same contractor doing it, so we don't really need anything. But his license expired, and that's what we gotta do.
All right.
I'll make a motion, the board approve Walsh Contracting Corporation of Attleboro, Mass. as the licensed utility installer for the town of North Attleboro, Department of Public Works.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so moved.
And just quickly updating on projects, Adamsdale Well is up and running. We have
Nice.
some SCADA issues, so it runs during the day. We shut it off at night, which is fine because it's wintertime. McEwen Well is actually going very well. They're looking to have the building start going in the next month or so. And we're gonna have our vessels delivered in February. We could actually be online in June.
Wow.
I'm not gonna be overly optimistic on that, but that's, right now, everything's falling in place. There'll probably be one part that makes the whole thing not happen, but right now, the contractor's doing an excellent job. I mentioned to you winter operations, and we are working on the sidewalk downtown just to get that project, just the straightaway that we did. Actually, the curbing is 100% done over there. They finished that today, up to Asians, so we're gonna go from there to the rest of the way next year. And they're gonna start doing concrete on Monday. It's actually gonna be a nice week with good overnights, so it's perfect
Yeah.
time to get that done, and they should be done in 3 or 4 days. They might have to come back next Monday after the holiday to do the last little section, but it's gonna be all gravelled out and walkable anyway. But we're looking forward to get that done for the winter. And then we are closed up and get out of Dodge. Our water main will be done on Friday on Old Post Road. They just have to pressure test and chlorinate that. That'll be next week during the week. And then once the results come back on Monday, after the holiday, we'll tie everyone back over to the new line and we'll be up and running. We actually TV'd the line before it was lined and after. It's unbelievable. You know, we had sections of the pipe taken out. It really was corroded down pretty badly in some areas, and now it's a brand-new 8-inch pipe going down that road. So what would have been an $800,000 or $900,000, we got done for $388 grand.
Mark, while we're talking about that, can we do the same thing in the center of town instead of digging up everything?
Yes, well, we already dug up the center of town, but moving forward, so one of the things the contractor said, he's like, see this pipe out here, Old Post Road? He's like, it took us forever to get through this pipe, because they cut the top off it, and then they bang it with a rod and get it through. And he's like, normally it's like 1, 2, 3 gone. He's like, we were taking turns. And he's like, the pipe is so thick. And I'm like, all this pipe was put in within about 10 years, so it's all the same ilk, 1909 and 1915, 1920. And he's like, if you don't have brakes on this pipe, this is perfect for lining. So East Street, Elm Street, all these pipes, they're like, this is how you want to do it on this. It is so much more efficient to get that. The downside is you got to do an above ground.
Right.
But in the summer, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
And, you know, late fall, not the best.
That's not bad. They did a nice job laying that all out on the side there.
No, this contract is excellent. You know, obviously, we got to
Is
put out
that what they're
competitive
doing on
bid.
North Washington? Right down,
No, this is Old Post Road, we're doing that.
all right, so what are they doing down in North Washington? Right past Town Hall?
Oh,
next
that's the that's the gas
Gas
company
company.
again.
A gas company again?
Yeah.
I was gonna ask if they were done. They left a hole on Orange Street.
They did. So they're trying to get their crossings done. They can't get over on the other side of Route 1. So tomorrow they're actually they're going to directional drill under Route 1 on Elm Street. And then they're directional drilling under Scottsbrook. They couldn't find a place to go through Scottsbrook that they could penetrate. where they would be low enough and not disrupt the water, or high enough and not be too close to the surface, so they have to directional drill under it. Liberty Utilities is not very good at anything under 3 feet, so you have to call in special forces for that. So that's what they're doing this week.
How long are they gonna have that all torn up and everything?
They're supposed to be done right around December 1st, which is our cutoff. They might be a day or two late, which I've already talked to them about, that, it's on a day-to-day basis, but hopefully they'll be out of here in the next couple of weeks. And then they'll be back in the springtime to do it all over again. All right.
Anything else?
I don't
Anybody
know,
got
does anyone have
anything
any
else?
questions?
No,
I probably
I'm all
forgot
set.
some stuff.
I think
We're
it's-
still just so you guys know, we're still working on Oak Ridge. We're all done with the paving part of it, but there's some patchwork that we're gonna do, get the heater out there as time allows, and just kind of keep working on that. And I know people were in here for Clifton Freeman. We're gonna do some work over there with our heater machine, just to kind of patch up that before the winter.
When is our next meeting?
I have no idea.
Oh, well, Mr. Chairman, when is our Christmas party?
Talk to, about the Christmas party?
Yeah, you're the chairman, you're the one that's gonna put it
Oh,
on.
tonight.
No party tonight.
It's, you gotta stop planning.
I'll stop planning.
I need people to start planning my part. I'm no good at planning things. I don't know. We'll probably have one meeting in December.
Okay, that's fine.
That's fine.
I was just wondering if the chairman was gonna plan a Christmas party, that's why.
That is the Christmas party.
There you go.
BYOB?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right, good.
And bring gifts for the chairman.
Who's making a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn?
There we go.
Motion's made and
Second?
seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:38.